Trust is the most expensive material in history. It costs nothing to create, everything to lose. Every currency ever printed is backed by belief, not gold, and belief is always temporary. The moment paper replaced metal, the world entered a contract it never signed, a promise that value could exist without weight, that nations could print trust. That confidence was currency. It worked, until it didn't. August 15, 1971, a Sunday evening. President Richard Nixon appeared on television. 7 minutes. No drama, no panic. He announced the United States would no longer convert dollars into gold. The Bretton Woods system, the architecture of global finance for 26 years, ended in a single broadcast. The dollar became paper backed by nothing but the word of a government under pressure. Markets closed. Central banks scrambled. By Monday morning, every currency on earth floated freely. No anchor, no metal, just faith. This wasn't innovation. It was necessity. The U.S. had printed more dollars than it held gold. The French knew. They demanded payment in metal. Germany followed. The system was hemorrhaging trust. So Nixon severed the link. He called it temporary. It never reversed. The global economy became an agreement to believe in something invisible. This was the second time a superpower tried this. The first attempt happened 660 years earlier. China, 1260. Kublai Khan ruled the largest empire on earth. His armies conquered territory faster than administrators could manage it. Funding that expansion required silver, lots of it. But silver mines had limits, so Khan issued paper, not as a receipt for metal, as the metal itself. He called it chow. The penalty for refusing it was death. The penalty for counterfeiting it was also death. For 30 years it worked. Merchants accepted paper. Markets stabilized. Trade expanded. Then the empire grew too fast. Khan printed more paper to pay soldiers, then more to feed cities, then more to rebuild after rebellions. The currency inflated, slowly at first, then exponentially. By 1290, cow was worth a fraction of its original value. Markets collapsed into barter. The empire fragmented, not because of war, because the paper stopped meaning anything. The pattern was set. Paper works when trust holds. When trust cracks, paper is just paper. Sweden, 1661, Europe's first official paper currency. Issued by Stockholm's Banco. The bank promised that notes could be redeemed for copper. Sweden mined copper, lots of it. But copper was heavy. Coins weighed kilos. So the bank offered paper, lighter, easier, convenient. People accepted it. For 5 years, it circulated smoothly. Then the bank printed more than it had copper. Depositors noticed. They demanded metal. The bank couldn't deliver. It collapsed in 1667. The director, Johann Palmstruck, was sentenced to death, later commuted. But the damage was done. Trust evaporated. The pattern repeated. Not because anyone wanted it to, because the incentive structure was identical. Governments needed money. Metal was limited. Paper was infinite. The only constraint was belief. And belief always lagged behind supply. France, 1716. The economy was suffocating under debt from wars waged by Louis XIV. The treasury was empty. Inflation was rising. Enter John Law, a Scottish financier with a radical idea. He convinced the regent to establish the Banque Générale. It issued paper money backed by government bonds, not metal. Initially, the currency held value. Law merged the bank with the Mississippi Company, which held a monopoly on trade with French territories in North America. He promised vast wealth from the colonies. Investors bought shares. The stock price soared. More paper was printed to facilitate the frenzy. By 1720, the bubble was obvious. The colonies weren't producing wealth. The stock was vapor. Investors tried to convert paper into metal. The bank couldn't provide it. The currency collapsed. Law fled France. The economy imploded. People called it the Mississippi Bubble. It wasn't a bubble. It was belief reaching its material limit. That confidence was the first crack. The United States, 1861. The Civil War drained the Union's gold reserves. President Lincoln needed to fund the military. Congress authorized the printing of paper currency not backed by gold or silver. They called them greenbacks. The name came from the ink, green on one side. The notes couldn't be redeemed for metal, only for goods, services, or future taxes. Their value depended entirely on Union victory. If the North lost, the currency was worthless. So the government made them legal tender. Merchants had no choice. They had to accept them. The greenbacks inflated during the war. Prices doubled, but the Union won. And after the war, the government slowly withdrew the notes and restored gold backing. The gamble worked, not because the system was sound, because the nation survived. The currency's value was always a bet on political continuity. By the 20th century, the pattern was global. Paper currencies backed by metal, until the metal ran out, then paper backed by nothing, except promises. Weimar Germany, 1921 to 1923. The Treaty of Versailles imposed crushing reparations. Germany owed 132 billion gold marks. The economy couldn't produce that wealth, so the government printed Reichsmarks, millions, then billions, then trillions. Workers were paid twice a day so they could spend money before it lost value. A loaf of bread cost billions of marks. Hyperinflation destroyed savings. The middle class was obliterated. By November 1923, the currency was useless. The government introduced a new mark, the Rentenmark, backed by land. The old currency was abandoned. Entire fortunes turned to dust. Not gradually, instantly. The trauma lasted generations. But the mechanism was simple. A government printed money to meet obligations it couldn't afford. The currency reflected that reality. Hyperinflation wasn't a mistake, it was math. No one noticed the collapse had already started. Zimbabwe, 2007 to 2009. The government seized farms. Agricultural output collapsed. Revenue fell. So the Reserve Bank printed money. At first, prices rose slowly, then violently. By 2008, inflation hit 79.6 billion% month over month. The central bank issued a $100 trillion note. It couldn't buy a loaf of bread. People used foreign currency. The Zimbabwean dollar became memorabilia. The government abandoned it in 2009. The pattern was identical to Weimar. Different century, same incentives, same outcome. Lebanon, 2019 to 2023. The banking system was a Ponzi scheme. High interest rates attracted deposits, but the money wasn't invested. It paid earlier depositors. The government borrowed constantly. Public debt reached 170% of GDP. Banks ran out of dollars. They froze accounts. People couldn't withdraw their savings. The currency, the lira, collapsed. It lost over 95% of its value in 3 years. ATMs limited withdrawals. The middle class evaporated. The system didn't break because of war. It broke because the promises exceeded the resources. That same pattern runs through every fiat collapse. Print money to cover gaps. Inflation follows, trust erodes, the currency dies. Now the present. The U.S. national debt, as of 2023, exceeds $33 trillion. That's over 120% of GDP. Debt increases by roughly $1 trillion every 100 days. The Federal Reserve, since 2008, has printed trillions through quantitative easing. First to bail out banks, then to stabilize markets during the pandemic. The money wasn't backed by productivity, it was backed by confidence in the system. That confidence is a variable, not a constant. Central banks worldwide followed the same script. The European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England. Trillions created digitally, injected into economies. Asset prices soared. Stocks, real estate, bonds. But wages didn't. The wealth gap widened, not because of greed, because printed money flows to assets first, to labor last.